quilty friends, it's Carolina Moore, your favorite sewing and quilting YouTuber, and today I have my laptop out because we are going to start a quilt block using the computer. That's right, I'm going to show you EQ8 to make a really fun kaleidoscope block, and I hope you'll let me know if you enjoy this video and you want to see more videos on using the EQ software. Now, when I first started coming up with my own quilt designs, I did it on graph paper like most people do. But then I was introduced to what at the time was EQ7 because it was the 7th iteration of the software, and is now EQ8 because they've upgraded it and there's now an 8th version of the software. And it helps you put together your quilts, see what they're going to look like, and you can actually import fabric swatches and plug them right into the quilt so you can see the kind of contrast and color that you're going to get in the finished quilt. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of picking fabrics. It does a lot of the quilty math for you as well, and it makes it so fun to design and put together your own quilts. So we're going to go ahead and go to the computer and hop right into the software. Alright, I have the software here on my computer, and I'm going to go to the EQ8 icon and tap on that EQ8 icon, and that's going to open up the software itself. And then I'm going to design a quilt from scratch. And I want my blocks to be 12 inches. And I'll leave the border as is. It has a 1-inch border, which kind of would look like the binding on this. Then I'm going to go under design, and there's all kinds of designs here. I'm going to open up the library, and there are so many different quilt blocks in here. Like if you just go through, you'll see why it's so much fun. These are all the standard. There's applique, there's regular piecing, there's so many different, but then you can add extra libraries, and so I have added the Kaleidoscope Collection 2, and there are so many fun kaleidoscope designs in here. Some really fun florals. You could really, really have fun with these. Now, when you see one that you like, you just click on it and you add it to your sketchbook, and that way you won't lose it. And here I'm seeing them really pretty small, just kind of getting a general idea of what they're going to look like. Now when I close this, you'll see all these have been added to my sketchbook. Now for my new quilt, my layout, this says 4x4, but I only want one block. Now my border looks really big. So I'm going to just take off the borders. There we go. And now I'm back to my design. So now I'm going to see just one block. So I can pop this block in, and how fun is that? Oh, look how pretty that is. There are all kinds of really, really fun designs. Now I want to make this block, but I want to make it in my own colors. I want to see what it's going to look like before I cut into any of my fabric. So I have this bundle of fabric, and I want to use this bundle of fabric, or the fabrics in this bundle, to make this and see how it's going to look. So I'm going to pull up those fabrics. If I go to the Art Gallery Fabrics website and I click on Get Inspired, and I just look at all their fabric collections, this will show me all of the current collections. It'll just take a second to load. There we go. And this is Coyote Hill by Katie O'Shea. That's the fabric line that I have. This one right here. So I'm going to download the JPEG swatches. And that's going to download right to my downloads folder. And now I can extract it because this is a compressed file and I need the actual file, so I'm going to extract it. And now when I go back to EQ8, I can click on my fabric tools, open up the fabric library, hit import from image files. Now I know I went really fast, but you can slow this down and replay it over and over if you need to. I'm going to my downloads folder, Coyote Hill. I'm going to open, and I'm just going to take all the fabrics. So I clicked on the top one, and I'm going to hold down shift and click on the bottom one and just say import. Oh, there we go, open. The green bar down here at the bottom tells me that they're loading. I'm going to click the first one, hold down shift, click the last one, and add them to my sketchbook. So now when I come down here, all the fabulous fabrics from my bundle are here. So I can sit here and hold them and look at them in real life, and then I can play with them on my screen at the same time. So I want this pink star. Do I want that there? I think we're going to try that. And then let me play with some of these other ones. So there's some really pretty blues. Do I want... I feel like maybe this is a little too monochromatic. Pull back into my fabrics. And I also have to think about scale. How small is this going to be when it's all put together? All right, I think that looks really fun. So I'm going to take these fabrics and pop them right in here. And now I have my design, but what if I say, I feel like it's gotten too dark on the outside and there's not enough contrast in here. So, and this bug, maybe I don't want it to be my dominant. So I'm going to take that bug fabric and put it in the middle instead. And then take that same reed fabric and bring it out. And now I have a very different looking block. So here, instead of this bird fabric, I've pulled in the coyote fabric. And I think that brings the block together more. All right, I'm loving the way that this is looking. So it is time to print out the foundation papers so that I can actually sew this up into a block. So let's go ahead and save our project. We're going to go under print and export, click on the block, and then we want the foundations. Now EQ will automatically section and number these for us, and it'll do a good job, and these are fairly simple what order to section and number them in. But let's say that you had a piece right here that you wanted fussy cut, so maybe you'd want to make this one 1 and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You could absolutely do that, but I'm just going to print it, and it's going to print to my default printer. All right, now I can go ahead and print the block so that I have this as a reference. Now it's saying that this is a 12 by 12 inch block, and I want to do it showing fabrics, but 12 by 12 is actually going to be bigger than my page. So my little hack here so I can print this as a reference is I'm going to go over to my layout, and I'm going to just do this in half. And what that will do on our design is it completely changed the look because the scale of the fabric's changed, but that's okay. I'm okay with the scale of the fabric's changing. I just want this as a reference. So now when I go, oh, I gotta click on my block. There we go. So now when I go to print my block, this will be 6 by 6 and it'll fit on a single page. And now I want it showing the fabrics, and I can print this out on regular paper so that I have a reference of what my block is supposed to look like as I sew it all together. All right, I have the printed reference of what my block is supposed to look like, so I can put the computer away, and I have my printed foundation sheets. I want to make sure that I save my file and then close this up. I put the computer away and I have my papers, and you can see that they printed in a tiled formation. And so that means that I need to glue them together. So I want to grab some paper scissors so that I can cut these on the lines to be able to glue them together. Now this part of the paper I don't need to glue together, so I'm going to go ahead and cut that off. I'm going to glue these two together. So I'm going to trim off one side here. I'm just using some school glue. And lining everything up. The more accurate I line it up, the more accurate my finished block will be. Press that down. I'm going to do the same with these two, glue them together. And now the top and bottom can come together. Now if I'm going to use this right away, I often don't add tape, but if I think it's going to sit for any period of time at all, I use a little bit of tape. And I want to put tape on the seam lines, but only on the seam lines where there are no stitch lines. So I don't want to put it where there's a stitch line right there. I could put a piece here, and just a couple pieces, just in case that glue dries out over time. And the reason you don't want to put it on the stitch line is because that will make it really difficult to remove these papers later. So we don't want it on the stitch line. All right, that's close to the stitch line, but I think I missed the stitch line, so it should be okay. All right, now I can cut my segments apart. I'm all set to start the actual sewing process and see if this block, when all sewn together, looks like it did on the screen. I have my fabric pressed and ready to go. I have all of my foundation pieces ready to go, and I have my quilt block design. I have a video that takes you step by step through foundation paper piecing. If you'd like to watch that, I'll make sure to link that as well. But we're going to do just some quick basic foundation paper piecing here. This is a pretty simple design. I know kaleidoscopes look complicated, but honestly, they aren't that bad at all. I know I have 8 of these papers, so I'm going to cut 4 good sized strips. Foundation paper piecing can result in a lot more scraps, but you get that great precision. So I'm not too worried about it. The fabric, I can always get some more fabric if I need some more fabric. So I'm going to be a little generous with these cuts. I find that when I am more stingy with my cuts, I end up having to re-sew pieces. So it's always a question of, do I value my time or do I value my fabric more? And I would love to just see this done. So I'm not too worried about the fabric. I'm going to value my time first on this one. I have my first 2 pieces cut, and it's time to put them on the paper. Now, if you've never foundation paper pieced before, the best thing to remember is that you're always looking at the front. Right now we're looking at the front of the pattern, and here we're looking at the front of the quilt. Front of the pattern, front of the quilt. We have A1 and A2, and this is our line right here. Now, some people like using light boxes, some people like folding their papers. There's lots of different ways to do this, and I go over some techniques in the foundation paper piecing video. For this sake, since I don't have my light box over here, we're just going to give ourselves a crease, A1 is this fabric here, and I know that from looking at my pattern, and it can go right here. And I just want to make sure that the entire section that I need covered is covered. So while there's a little bit of paper sticking out, that's okay, because the section actually ends all the way over here, so the section is covered. For the very first piece, I like to use just a little dab of glue because it's so easy to have it shift. So just a really light amount of glue, just enough to kind of baste it, hold it in place so it doesn't shift on me. And then I'm going to take fabric number 2 and place it on top. So this is the front of our quilt. And this is the front of my pattern, and I'm going to sew right on my pattern. And some people like to use a shorter stitch length when they're sewing foundation paper piecing. It's generally the preferred standard. I'm going to use the foundation piecing water pens to remove this, so I don't actually need a shorter stitch length, and I'm just going to sew right through my papers. Now we're going to trim our seam allowance by moving the paper out of the way, using my add a quarter ruler, which tucks right up against that paper fold. Trimming. And now we can open this up, and you can use a seam roller, or you can give this a finger press. Now I can go ahead and add my next fabric, and looking at my design, that's going to be this one. So again, I can find that line and fold it. Make sure that my piece is going to be big enough, and it is just barely. Now here's the part that some people get messed up on. You're going to take your piece and you want to cover, it's usually covering the piece that you just added, because we're going to bring this back and it's going to come over here. So I'm going to put this piece down, bring it over to the machine. Again, we're sewing on the pattern, so flip it, put the pattern side up. It's always right side up. Either the pattern is up or the fabric is up. The quilt is up or the pattern is up. All right, I want to double check that my fabric went far enough. And it did. Before I trim anything off, so I'm going to bring my paper out of the way, trim off that seam allowance. And you can finger press or use a seam roller. Perfect. Then I can add the next piece, the next piece, and the next piece, and I can repeat this, making all of the units. Again, if you want a more detailed step-by-step in how to do foundation paper piecing, I have a full foundation paper piecing video that'll take you through all of these steps. So let's go ahead and get all these done. All the pieces are done, and now they just need to be sewn together. And these can be sewn together like half square triangles. So these two together and these two together, these together and these two together, and then it just comes together like a 4-patch. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. It's just a couple quick seams. People always ask, when do you take the papers out? And with foundation paper piecing, it is you wait until the very last minute and then you take them out. And this is the last minute. Some of these papers need to start coming out because otherwise they're going to get stuck in the seams. So I've sewn these half square triangle units together, and if I press this to the side or open, and open's going to be my preference, the paper's going to get stuck underneath here, and when I sew this seam I won't be able to get this out. So this is the time where I take out the paper just in the seam allowance. Now taking out papers is easiest with a foundation piecing water pen, It's a pen. They sell them at all different kinds of quilt shops all over, as well as online. I'll put a link down below. And you just run the pen along your seam allowance. Depending on the kind of paper you're using, you might want to run it a couple times. This newsprint style paper is pretty easy, and you can see the paper just comes out so easily. Barely any resistance at all. There's just enough water to dampen those paper fibers, but it doesn't actually get your project wet, so you're not soaking the fabric at all. You're just really dampening the paper. Alright, so I've only taken the paper out of the seam allowance. That's all that needs to come out. And now I can take the seam allowance and press it open. You can finger press this again, but I would definitely use a seam roller if you have access to one. It's going to give you a better press on your seam. There we go. There's 1/4 done. I'm going to do the same with the other 3/4, and then we'll sew them together like a 4-patch. All right, we have the 4/4, so I'm going to sew these two together and these two together, and then I'll need to do the same thing where I remove the seam allowance and press it on both of these, and then I will sew the whole thing together and I will have a completed block. Last seam. So here we have the digital version, and here is the stitched out version of the block. Isn't that so fun? Well, I hope this inspires you to use a little technology to see what your quilt blocks are going to look like before you even touch the fabric at all. I absolutely love how this block turned out, and I know that this is not the order that I would have put these fabrics in if I wouldn't have used EQ8 to align them all up. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up. I've got all the links that you need down in the description, and friends, make sure that you are subscribed to this channel because I have so much more fun coming your way. That's it for today, my friends. I will see you right here real soon. Bye for now.